Section 11 of Divots by P.G. Wodehouse. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Rodney fails to qualify, Part 2. My interview with Jane that evening served only to confirm the bad news. Yes, she was definitely engaged to the man Spelvin. In a burst of girlish confidence she told me some of the details of the affair. The moon was shining and a soft breeze played in the trees, she said. And suddenly he took me in his arms, gazed deep into my eyes, and cried, "I love you! I worship you! I adore you! You are the tree on which the fruit of my life hangs, my mate, my woman, predestined to me since the first star shone up in yonder sky." "Nothing," I agreed, "could be fairer than that." "And then," I said, thinking how different it all must have been from William Bates's miserable, limping proposal, "then we fixed it up that we would get married in September." "Are you sure you are doing wisely?" I ventured. Her eyes opened. "Why do you say that?" "Well, you know, whatever his other merits, and no doubt they are numerous, Rodney Spelvin does not play golf." "No, but he is very broad-minded about it." I shuddered. Women say these things so lightly. "Broad-minded?" "Yes, he has no objection to my going on playing. He says he likes my pretty enthusiasms." There seemed nothing more to say on that subject. "Well," I said, "I am sure I wish you every happiness. I had hoped, of course, but never mind that." "What?" "I had hoped, as you insist on my saying it, that you and William Bates—" A shadow passed over her face. Her eyes grew sad. "Poor William! I'm awfully sorry about that. He's a dear." "A splendid fellow," I agreed. "He has been so wonderful about the whole thing. So many men would have gone off and shot grizzly bears or something. But William just said 'Right-o' in a quiet voice, and he's going to caddy for me at Mossy Heath next week. There is good stuff in the boy." "Yes," she sighed, "if it wasn't for Rodney. Oh, well." I thought it would be tactful to change the subject. "So you have decided to go to Mossy Heath again?" "Yes, and I'm really going to qualify this year." The annual invitation tournament at Mossy Heath was one of the most important fixtures of our local female golfing year. As is usual with these affairs, it began with a medal play qualifying round, the 32 players with the lowest net scores then proceeding to fight it out during the remainder of the week by match play. It gratified me to hear Jane speak so confidently of her chances, for this was the 4th year she had entered, and each time, though she had started out with the brightest prospects, she had failed to survive the qualifying round. Like so many golfers, she was 50% better at match play than at medal play. Mossy Heath, being a championship of course, is full of nasty pitfalls, and on each one of the 3 occasions on which she had tackled it one very bad hole had undone all her steady work on the other 17 and ruined her card. I was delighted to find her so undismayed by failure. "I'm sure you will," I said. "Just play your usual careful game." "It doesn't matter what sort of game I play this time," said Jane, jubilantly. "I've just heard that there are only 32 entries this year, so that everybody who finishes is bound to qualify. I have simply got to get round somehow, and there I am. It would seem somewhat superfluous in these circumstances to play a qualifying round at all." "Oh, but they must. You see, there are prizes for the best 3 scores, so they have to play it. But isn't it a relief to know that, even if I come to grief on that beastly 17th, as I did last year, I shall be all right?" "It is, indeed. I have a feeling that once it becomes a matter of match play you will be irresistible." "I do hope so. It would be lovely to win with Rodney looking on." "Will he be looking on?" "Yes. He's going to walk round with me. Isn't it sweet of him?" Her fiancé's name having slid into the conversation again, she seemed inclined to become eloquent about him. I left her, however, before she could begin. To one so strongly pro-William as myself, eulogistic prattle about Rodney Spelman was repugnant. I disapproved entirely of this infatuation of hers. I am not a narrow-minded man. I quite appreciate the fact that non-golfers are entitled to marry, but I could not countenance their marrying potential winners of the Ladies' Invitation Tournament at Mossy Heath. The Greens Committee, as Greens Committees are so apt to do in order to justify their existence, have altered the Mossy Heath course considerably since the time of which I am speaking, but they have left the 3 most poisonous holes untouched. I refer to the 4th, the 7th, and the 15th. Even a soulless Greens Committee seems to have realized that golfers, long-suffering though they are, can be pushed too far, and that the addition of even a single extra bunker to any of these dreadful places would probably lead to armed riots in the clubhouse. Jane Packard had done well on the first 3 holes, but as she stood on the 4th tee she was conscious, despite the fact that this seemed to be one of her good days, of a certain nervousness. And oddly enough, great as was her love for Rodney Spelman, it was not his presence that gave her courage, but the sight of William Bates's large, friendly face, and the sound of his pleasant voice urging her to keep her bean down and refrain from pressing. As a matter of fact, to be perfectly truthful, there was beginning already to germinate within her by this time a faint but definite regret that Rodney Spelman had decided to accompany her on this qualifying round. It was sweet of him to bother to come, no doubt, but still there was something about Rodney that did not seem to blend with the holy atmosphere of a championship course. He was the one romance of her life, and their souls were bound together for all eternity, but the fact remained that he did not appear to be able to keep still while she was making her shots, and his light humming, musical though it was, militated against accuracy on the green. He was humming now as she addressed her ball, and for an instant a spasm of irritation shot through her. She fought it down bravely and concentrated on her drive, and when the ball soared over the cross bunker she forgot her annoyance. There is nothing so mellowing, so conducive to sweet and genial thoughts, as a real juicy one straight down the middle, and this was a Piptorino. "Nice work," said William Bates approvingly. Jane gave him a grateful smile and turned to Rodney. It was his appreciation that she wanted. He was not a golfer, but even he must be able to see that her drive had been something out of the common. Rodney Spelman was standing with his back turned, gazing out over the rolling prospect, one hand shading his eyes. "That vista there," said Rodney, "that calm, wooded hollow, bathed in the golden sunshine, it reminds me of the valley of Avalon. Did you see my drive, Rodney? Where falls not rain nor hail nor any snow, nor ever wind blows loudly. Eh? Your drive? No, I didn't." Again Jane Packard was aware of that faint, wistful regret. But this was swept away a few moments later in the ecstasy of a perfect iron shot which plunked her ball nicely on to the green. The last time she had played this hole she had taken 7, for all round the plateau green are sinister sand bunkers, each beckoning the ball into its hideous depths, and now she was on in 2, and life was very sweet. Putting was her strong point, so that there was no reason why she should not get a snappy 4 on one of the nastiest holes on the course. She glowed with a strange emotion as she took her putter, and as she bent over her ball the air seemed filled with soft music. It was only when she started to concentrate on the line of her putt that this soft music began to bother her. Then, listening, she became aware that it proceeded from Rodney Spelman. He was standing immediately behind her, humming an old French love-song. It was the sort of old French love-song to which she could have listened for hours in some scented garden under the young May moon, but on the green of the 4th at Mossy Heath it got right in amongst her nerve centres. "Rodney, please!" "Eh?" Jane found herself wishing that Rodney Spelman would not say "eh" whenever she spoke to him. "Do you mind not humming?" said Jane. "I want to putt." "Putt on, child, putt on," said Rodney Spelman indulgently. "I don't know what you mean, but if it makes you happy to putt, putt to your heart's content." Jane bent over her ball again. She had got the line now. She brought back her putter with infinite care. "My God!" exclaimed Rodney Spelman, going off like a bomb. Jane's ball, sharply jabbed, shot past the hole and rolled on about 3 yards. She spun round in anguish. Rodney Spelman was pointing at the horizon. "What a bit of colour!" he cried. "Did you ever see such a bit of colour?" "Oh, Rodney!" moaned Jane. "Eh?" Jane gulped and walked to her ball. Her fourth putt trickled into the hole. "Did you win?" said Rodney Spelman amiably. Jane walked to the fifth tee in silence. The fifth and sixth holes at Mossy Heath are long, but they offer little trouble to those who are able to keep straight. It is as if the architect of the course had relaxed over these two in order to ensure that his malignant mind should be at its freshest and keenest when he came to design the pestilential seventh. This seventh, as you may remember, is the hole at which Sandy McHoots, then Open champion, took an 11 on an important occasion. It is a short hole, and a full mashie will take you nicely on to the green, provided you carry the river that frolics just beyond the tee and seems to plead with you to throw it a ball to play with. Once on the green, however, the problem is to stay there. The green itself is about the size of a drawing-room carpet, and in the summer, when the ground is hard, a ball that has not the maximum of backspin is apt to touch lightly and bound off into the river beyond. For this is an island green, where the stream bends like a serpent. I refresh your memory with these facts in order that you may appreciate to the full what Jane Packard was up against. The woman with whom Jane was partnered had the honor and drove a nice high ball, which fell into one of the bunkers to the left. She was a silent, patient-looking woman, and she seemed to regard this as perfectly satisfactory. She withdrew from the tee and made way for Jane. "Nice work," said William Bates a moment later, for Jane's ball, soaring in a perfect arc, was dropping, it seemed, on the very pin. "Oh, Rodney, look!" cried Jane. "Eh?" said Rodney Spelman. His remark was drowned in a passionate squeal of agony from his betrothed. The most poignant of all tragedies had occurred. The ball, touching the green, leaped like a young lamb, scuttled past the pin, and took a running dive over the cliff. There was a silence. Jane's partner, who was seated on the bench by the sandbox reading a pocket edition in limp leather of Varden's, What Every Young Golfer Should Know, with which she had been refreshing herself at odd moments all through the round, had not observed the incident. William Bates, with the tact of a true golfer, refrained from comment. Jane was herself swallowing painfully. It was left to Rodney Spelman to break the silence. "Good," he said. Jane Packard turned like a stepped-on worm. "What do you mean, good?" "You hit your ball farther than she did." "I sent it into the river," said Jane, in a low, toneless voice. "Capital," said Rodney Spelman, delicately masking a yawn with 2 fingers of his shapely right hand. "Capital! Capital!" Her face contorted with pain. Jane put down another ball. "Playing 3, she said. The student of Varden marked the place in her book with her thumb, looked up, nodded, and resumed her reading. "Nice began William Bates, as the ball soared off the tee, and he checked himself abruptly. Already he could see that the unfortunate girl had put too little beef into it. The ball was falling, falling. It fell. A crystal fountain flashed up towards the sun. The ball lay floating on the bosom of the stream, only some few feet short of the island. But, as has been well pointed out, that little less, and how far away! "Plane 5, said Jane between her teeth. "What?" inquired Rodney Spelvin, chattily, lighting a cigarette. "Is the record break?" "Plane 5, said Jane with a dreadful calm, and gripped her mashie. "Half a second," said William Bates suddenly. "I say, I believe you could play that last one from where it floats. A good crisp slosh with a niblick would put you on, and you'd be there in 4, with a chance for a 5. Worth trying, what? I mean, no sense in dropping strokes unless you have to." Jane's eyes were gleaming. She threw William a look of infinite gratitude. "Why, I believe I could. Worth having a dash. There's a boat down there." "I could row," said William. "I could stand in the middle and slosh," cried Jane. "And what's his name, that?" said William, jerking his head in the direction of Rodney Spelvin, who was strolling up and down behind the tee, humming a gay Venetian barcarolle, could steer. "William," said Jane, fervently, "you're a darling." "Oh, I don't know," said William modestly. "There is no one like you in the world." "Rodney!" "Eh?" said Rodney Spelvin. "We're going out in that boat. I want you to steer." Rodney Spelvin's face showed appreciation of the change of program. Golf bored him, but what could be nicer than a gentle row in a boat? "Capital," he said. "Capital! Capital!" There was a dreamy look in Rodney Spelvin's eyes as he leaned back with the tiller ropes in his hands. This was just his idea of the proper way of passing a summer afternoon. Drifting lazily over the silver surface of the stream. He closed his eyes. He began to murmur softly. All to-day the slow sleek ripples hardly bear up shoreward, charged with sighs more light than laughter, faint and fair, like a woodland lake's weak wavelets, lightly lingering forward, soft and listless as the "Here! Hi!" For at this moment the silver surface of the stream was violently split by a vigorously wielded niblick. The boat lurched drunkenly, and over his Panama-hatted head and down his grey flannel torso there descended a cascade of water. "Here! Hi!" cried Rodney Spelvin. He cleared his eyes and gazed reproachfully. Jane and William Bates were peering into the depths. "I missed it," said Jane. "There she spouts," said William, pointing. "Ready?" Jane raised her niblick. "Here! Hi!" bleated Rodney Spelvin, as a second cascade poured damply over him. He shook the drops off his face, and perceived that Jane was regarding him with hostility. "I do wish you wouldn't talk just as I am swinging," she said pettishly. "Now you've made me miss it again. If you can't keep quiet, I wish you wouldn't insist on coming round with one. Can you see it, William?" "There she blows," said William Bates. "Here, you aren't going to do it again, are you?" cried Rodney Spelvin. Jane bared her teeth. "I'm going to get that ball onto the green if I have to stay here all night," she said. Rodney Spelvin looked at her and shuddered. Was this the quiet, dreamy girl he had loved? This Maenad? Her hair was lying in damp wisps about her face. Her eyes were shining with an unearthly light. "No, but really," he faltered. Jane stamped her foot. "What are you making all this fuss about, Rodney?" she snapped. "Where is it, William?" "There she dips," said William. "Plane 6." "Plane 6." "Let her go," said William. "Let her go it is," said Jane. A perfect understanding seemed to prevail between these two. Splash! The woman on the bank looked up from her Varden as Rodney Spelvin's agonized scream rent the air. She saw a boat upon the water, a man rowing the boat, another man, hatless, gesticulating in the stern, a girl beating the water with a niblick. She nodded placidly and understandingly. A niblick was the club she would have used herself in such circumstances. Everything appeared to her entirely regular and orthodox. She resumed her book. Splash! "Plane 15," said Jane. "15 is right," said William Bates. Splash! 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 Plane 44. 44 is correct. Splash, 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 splash. 83? said Jane, brushing the hair out of her eyes. No, only 82, said William Bates. Where is it? There she drifts. A dripping figure rose violently in the stern of the boat, spouting water like a public fountain. For what seemed to him like an eternity, Rodney Spelvin had ducked and spluttered and writhed, and now it came to him abruptly that he was through. He bounded from his seat, and at the same time Jane swung with all the force of her supple body. There was a splash beside which all the other splashes had been as nothing. The boat overturned and went drifting away. 3 bodies plunged into the stream. 3 heads emerged from the water. The woman on the bank looked absently in their direction. Then she resumed her book. "It's all right," said William Bates, contentedly. "We're in our depth." "My bag!" cried Jane. "My bag of clubs!" "Must have sunk," said William. "Rodney," said Jane, "my bag of clubs is at the bottom somewhere. Dive under and swim about and try to find it." "It's bound to be around somewhere," said William Bates, encouragingly. Rodney Spelvin drew himself up to his full height. It was not an easy thing to do, for it was muddy where he stood, but he did it. "Damn your bag of clubs!" he bellowed, lost to all shame. "I'm going home." With painful steps, tripping from time to time and vanishing beneath the surface, he sloshed to the shore. For a moment he paused on the bank, silhouetted against the summer sky. Then he was gone. Jane Packard and William Bates watched him go with amazed eyes. "I never would have dreamed," said Jane dazedly, "that he was that sort of man." "A bad lot," said William Bates. "The sort of man to be upset by the merest trifle." "Must have a naturally bad disposition," said William Bates. "Why, if a little thing like this could make him so rude and brutal and horrid, it wouldn't be safe to marry him." "Taking a big chance," agreed William Bates. "Sort of fellow who would water the cat's milk and kick the baby in the face." He took a deep breath and disappeared. "Here are your clubs, old girl," he said, coming to the surface again. "Only wanted a bit of looking for." "Oh, William," said Jane, "you are the most wonderful man on earth." "Would you go as far as that?" said William. "I was mad ever to get engaged to that brute." "Now there," said William Bates, removing an eel from his left breast pocket, "I'm absolutely with you. Thought so all along, but I didn't like to say so. What I mean is, a girl like you, keen on golf and all that sort of thing, ought to marry a chap like me, keen on golf and everything of that description." "William," cried Jane, passionately, detaching a newt from her right ear, "I will." "Silly nonsense, when you come right down to it. You're marrying a fellow who doesn't play golf." "Nothing in it." "I'll break off the engagement the moment I get home." "You couldn't make a sounder move, old girl." "William!" "Jane!" The woman on the bank, glancing up as she turned a page, saw a man and a girl embracing, up to their waists in water. It seemed to have nothing to do with her. She resumed her book. Jane looked lovingly into William's eyes. "William," she said, "I think I have loved you all my life." "Jane," said William, "I'm dashed sure I've loved you all my life. Meant to tell you so a dozen times, but something always seemed to come up." "William," said Jane, "you're an angel and a darling. Where's the ball?" "There she pops." "Plane 84? 84 it is," said William. "Slow back, keep your eye on the ball, and don't press." The woman on the bank began chapter 25. End of section 11.